Well, welcome everybody to May's edition of the Cumbria Wildlife Trust podcast. This month I've got the pleasure of being at one of our wonderful coastal reserves out in the sun at South Walney Nature Reserve. We thought we'd come down to our incredibly special nature reserve down here in the southwest of the county to talk about the wildlife and specifically the breeding birds down here. And today I'm joined by Bekka Watts, who is our warden down here at South Walney.
Hi everyone.
How's it going, Bekka?
Really well, how are you?
Good. All the better for being out here in the sunshine.
Absolutely.
So, Bekka, tell us a little bit about what your role is down here at South Walney.
So I am here to look after the birds. At this time of year it's about the breeding birds, so I live on site and I spend my time monitoring the birds, doing surveys and working out the productivity of nesting species, and also putting in protective measures for species like little tern and ring plover.
Those specific measures are about trying to allay predation.
That's right, yeah.
Because
That's exactly it.
they have a hard time, don't they, these
They really
nesting
do.
birds. But also, part of your role is engaging with visitors as well, isn't it?
It is, yes. So engagement is really important. I do a lot of things like guided walks with schools and interacting with visitors and just teaching them about the amazing wildlife that we have here.
So a lot of this podcast, we're going to be talking about the difficulties that our ground nesting birds have. And predation, as we just talked about, is one of the big ones, isn't it? But the other one is disturbance.
Yes, disturbance can be a huge issue and is a huge issue for ground nesting birds. Because they nest on the ground and they've evolved to do so, the fight for survival really does begin as soon as the eggs are laid. Now, they've evolved over time to lay these beautiful camouflaged eggs, and that's almost a hindrance to them because people may not see them and people can be walking right by them without realising. And another major issue is the fact that these birds can perceive dogs as predators. So if there are dogs running around on the beach, the adult birds will become extremely stressed by that and will perform different displays to lead the predator away from their nest, and the exposure is a huge threat to either the chicks or the eggs.
Yeah, that's a big thing, isn't it? I know we've just had the wildestly warm spring for a long, long time, but when the weather's poor, and especially when it's cold and it's rainy, you do not want those adult birds to leave those eggs, do you? Because
No.
the eggs can chill, can't they? And
They can, yeah. They can chill in the bad weather. And another problem is that a lot of species that are quite intelligent, such as corvids, will notice as soon as the adult bird is away doing their distraction displays. For example, ring plover, they'll do a broken wing display to lead what they perceive as the threat away to sort of eat them rather than the eggs. And in doing so, leaving the eggs exposed, that then results in corvids and large gulls going and having a snack because it's an easy option.
Yeah. Corvids being crows.
Yes,
And
corvids being
their
crows.
ilk.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I absolutely, thoroughly believe that South Walney is the place that it is and is the haven for wildlife that it is because we, as a wildlife trust, have been looking after it and in some way policing it since the 1960s.
Yes, I believe that too.
And so here we are, we're like right out on the tip of South Walney, which is just beautiful, looking out over the bay. But we have another wonderful bird island, which is even kind of more remote, just across the Walney Channel here at Foulney. Now, you cut your teeth at Foulney Island, didn't you, Bekka?
Foulney was my first job with the Trust and it was an incredible experience for me. So it's a tiny little island, it's only 18 hectares in size. And when you go out there as a warden, you're the only person living on the island. So I was in a caravan out there looking after the target species, being the oystercatcher, ring plover, little tern and Arctic tern. So it's a crucially important site.
It's an incredibly isolated place. It seems really wild for being down here in southwest Cumbria and really not being that far outside of Barrow. We've got our seasonal warden out there at the moment, Chris, and Liz, our producer, has been out to talk to Chris about, he's only been there 3 weeks, so he's very new to the job, but Liz has been out there to talk to Chris about his initial experience down on Foulney, dealing with the birds, dealing with the visitors, and tell us a bit about how the birds are going.
So I'm here at Foulney Island and we've just come over the causeway. I'm with Chris, who's the island warden, And Chris, I wonder if you could just tell me a little bit about this amazing island.
Yeah, so Foulney is important for a few reasons, but the main one that I'm here for is the nesting and breeding of the tern colonies. So we have a good few species on the island, but the most important are our little terns and Arctic terns, which come here to nest in our summertime.
And we're kind of waiting for them now with bated breath, really, aren't we?
Yeah, so they typically nest kind of mid-May, early June. So they've started to visit the island, but not quite gotten as far as making nests yet, but still got my fingers crossed that'll be a successful year for them.
But there's some birds here already.
There are, yeah. Got ring plovers and oyster catchers nesting. And then we also have plenty of skylark, meadow pipits and wagtails as well.
And tell me about what you're doing here. You're only here for a few precious summer months, really, aren't you?
Yeah, so here for the important months, I spend most of my time doing surveys and monitoring nests. So every other day, more or less, I'll do a shorebird survey and look for nests, mark them, monitor them, monitor how many eggs are in there, whether any of the eggs get predated, any more eggs are laid, set up camera traps and cages to protect them, and yeah, just general monitoring the nest really. That's the main reason I'm here, as well as to reduce disturbance. That's the other big reason.
And you sleep on the island. You are the population of the island, aren't you? Apart from the birds, of course. Which
Yeah, I am the sole populator of the island, although we do get a fair few anglers that seem to be here through the night as well. So yeah, I live in a caravan in the middle of the island. Basic, but everything that I need. Yeah, it's quite a peaceful life really.
tell us a bit about the terns. They're one of our most spectacular seabirds, aren't they?
Yes, so spectacular for a good few reasons, but the most renowned one is migration. So little terns alone migrate from West Africa to their breeding grounds in the UK here, which is a long enough distance, but then the Arctic's are circumpolar, so will migrate all the way from here, their breeding grounds in the northern hemisphere, to the Antarctic to spend their summer or our winter down there. So yeah, to give them an important piece of habitat to nest in and breed in year after year is very important.
So they come all the way up from the Antarctic to Foulney, which is fairly astonishing. So what is it about Foulney that suits them so well?
So yeah, as I said, shingle beaches provide the perfect substrates for the birds to scrape in and nest in, as well as the food availability around. So Morecambe Bay has quite a good number of sandworms and sand eels, as well as small fish which the tern feed on. So it gives a nice stable environment for breeding behaviour, breeding habitat.
Being an island must make it a bit more difficult for predators to come over.
We do get the odd predator. We have had problems in the past with foxes, but seldom seen, and especially this year we haven't seen any evidence of foxes. So yeah, the causeway and the isolated nature of the island does make it harder for predators. Predators on four legs at least. We do still have avian predators, so we get kestrels, sparrowhawks, crows, even turnstones seem to predate eggs.
Oh, really? And what about human disturbance, Chris? Is that an issue?
Yes, so it is an issue. People will visit the island, twitchers, photographers, anglers, just general visitors, all the same. Some people have the greatest intentions in mind and come out and just want to see nature, come out and see the birds. But at the minute when things are prospecting, so terns are prospecting, if there is any disturbance, particularly dog walkers, they will be put off nesting in an area, or they will be disturbed from their natural behaviour, which does make it harder for them. So that's part of my job here, is to reduce that disturbance. So it's about getting them to be mindful of their behaviour, respect the island. So we don't allow people on the beaches where birds nest at the minute. We ask people to only walk so far onto the islands, so half the island's actually cordoned off. And for the most part, people are compliant and very nice and friendly and just care about nature as much as we want them to.
But are there some exceptions, Chris?
Yeah, of course there are. I think there will always be people, whether it's local people that feel like they have more ownership over the island than, say, myself, who's only here for a few months of the year, or they're allowed to walk their dogs for 9 months of the year, and the only 3 months of the year that are not allowed to walk their dogs, it kind of changes their habits, and some people don't respond too nicely to that. But yeah, as I said, the majority of people are very pleasant and very nice and very amenable to the rules.
I mean, you're here in a caravan on your own, and I just wondered, is it ever intimidating or threatening?
Not so far. I could struggle to see that situation arising for myself, but I know in the past that there has been threatening behaviour, and yeah, people have definitely felt intimidated in the past.
I guess it must be very satisfying when you do have a conversation and you manage to get somebody who's been a bit sort of diehard to come round to our point of view.
Yeah, I think as long as there's a sign of respect there, I think the conversations do go a long way.
I think you're the right man for it.
I would like to hope so, but yeah, we shall see.
So, Chris, how are the terns doing? What's their breeding success like?
Pre-COVID, they were relatively very successful. And then during COVID, with no ward on the island, disturbance was very high. So the tern species especially struggled to find suitable nesting habitat that wasn't disturbed, and for chicks to fledge successfully being predated. So over the COVID years, the population definitely took a big hit. And it seems like since then, in the few years since then, we've had a warden on the island, it's been building back up that population. So in 2023, there was a few successful fledglings of Arctic and little terns. The large majority was still predated, unfortunately, predated by birds and foxes, etc. Although disturbance was a lot less. And then last year, again, a lot of the number was predated, but that was probably mostly to do with the bad weather as well. But the terns are still wanting to return, still looking for somewhere to nest. So I think as long as we keep on reducing disturbance and providing a good and safe habitat, hopefully we can get the numbers back up to a sustainable colony.
Are some of them coming prospecting already?
Yeah, so I mean, as long as ago as mid-April, so 4 weeks ago, we had sandwich terns fishing on high tide, and little terns visiting the island on high tide. And then as early as 29th of April, I think, was the first sighting of the Arctic terns. And ever since then, they've been sticking around a little bit more, been fishing a bit more, landing on the beach a bit more. So yeah, it seems like it's heading in a positive direction on the way to nesting season.
Perhaps you could show me now a few of the measures that have been put in place to kind of maximise the chances really for the terns. We're just at the very tip of the island now, we've come to the very end of it, but we'll just kind of make our way back to the causeway. So there's a vast enclosure here in the middle of the island. Can you tell me a bit about that?
So this is a predator fence. So it's 2 meters high and arched over. So foxes, which will tend to climb fences, can't climb the fence. And within the fence, we've got some loose shingle that we've scraped away last winter in hope of creating some habitat that birds will want to nest in. So we've got at the minute some decoys, some tern decoys, little tern and Arctic tern decoys, as well as a sound lure, in hope of attracting the colony to nest within the fence so they're a bit safer from predators. But yeah, there's a few oyster catchers being very loud in there, at least 3 pairs I think, and then some plovers in there as well, and then there's tons of meadow pips and skylarks in there, which I think quite like the more vegetation. Yeah, so the little terns are just flying over. We've got the decoys and the lure, which is a good sign, at least they're checking out the area. High tide is coming in now, so they're probably looking to fish, but yeah, probably prospecting out the area for somewhere to settle as well.
We can spot the sound lure from here.
So we've got it playing all hours of the day, dawn until dusk, and we just have 2 species vocalizations on repeat. So we've got little terns and Arctic terns, and they just play in hope that passing birds will hear it and want to settle quite close to it, which is also why we have the decoys on the ground right next to the lure, so anything passing over can hear and hopefully be tricked into kind of staying and thinking the colony is already settling there.
So Chris, it isn't just the nests within the fenced enclosure that you keep an eye on. You've also just pointed one out to me that's actually on the beach.
Yeah. So far, actually, the majority are out on the beach, outside of the fenced-in area. So this is just an oyster catcher nest, which actually at one point did have 3 eggs in it, One was cracked by some unknown reason and rolled out the nest, and now there's only 2 in. Oystercatchers seem to have a bit of a range of nests. So some nest towards grass, some nest in the pebbles themselves, which are really well camouflaged, and some build spectacular nests out of shells. So this one that we're looking at has a good few shells around it, but the eggs are still very well camouflaged within that.
Amazing. And the eggs themselves are, what colour would you say that was?
Ooh, somewhere in between green and brown, isn't it? It's a lovely and natural colour, and then speckled with darker bits.
Yeah. Just coming across a wonderful little flotilla of eider now.
The male eiders, the white and black ones, they'll tend to follow the high tide in. So as the tide's coming in now, they're starting to make the trip back onto the island from fishing, hopefully to tend to their mate, which will be incubating their eggs. So we get hundreds here every season, if not thousands, in the height of the season. Yeah.
They do that funny crooning sound, don't they?
They do, yeah. It's very entertaining to hear for the first few weeks at least. I'm sure I'll get tired of it at some point.
So, Chris, you're just going to show me another form of protection for the coastal birds.
Yeah, that's right. So this is a cage made essentially out of like livestock netting with small holes in it, and a ceiling. So this is for ring plover nests. We tend to try and cage every other one and put out decoy cages as well, so that predators don't figure out too quickly that under this cage is a nest. So this has been on here for a week or 2 now.
So the adults, they don't mind at all the fact that the nest's in the middle of a cage?
No, not at all.
They just come and go?
Yeah, they seem to not bother at all, So I've got a camera trap looking at this one, and it doesn't seem to affect them in the slightest. But there has been good success with these. So we've got camera trap footage of previous years of like barn owls trying to predate the nest but being stopped by the cage, and different things showing interest but not being able to actually get to the eggs. So it does seem successful.
Oh, wonderful. Do we just go down to it?
Yeah.
Oh, blimey.
Yeah, so the ring plover nest is seemingly so hard to find. There's just a small scrape and then some very well camouflaged eggs.
They're quite tiny, aren't they?
Yeah.
Very tiny compared to the oyster catcher.
Yeah, and as we've seen here, the parents will walk off quite quickly as soon as there's any disturbance.
They've just gone further down the beach, haven't they?
And stay quiet and well camouflaged, so they're quite well adapted at keeping the nests hidden, a lot better than the oyster catchers.
So it's a circular cage with a ceiling, as you say, with a roof, so that the aerial predators can't come in. Where's the entrance? Where do the ring plovers?
So they just fit right through the gaps.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
So they're about 1.5 by 3 inches or something, the gaps, aren't they? And a camera trap here too.
Yeah. So the camera trap just kind of more make sure that the nest is all right and the parents are getting in all right, and then also monitoring whether any predation does happen and whether it's successful in protecting the eggs from that.
Well, Chris, the tide's coming in now, and I'm going to get off the island whilst I still can. So I wish you a lot of luck. I hope you have a fantastic season. And I hope the terns have a fantastic season too.
Yeah, terns most importantly. But thank you. If the weather continues as it has been, I've got a lot of hope that both will be successful.
Yeah.
What a great interview there with Chris, and like I said, just getting into the job, finding his feet, and you know what it's like being over there, Bekka, having done that role in the past. Now, a lot of these things that Chris is employing to look after the birds and to lure the birds down are things that you've kind of pioneered, haven't you, or you've had a hand in?
I have. So things like the decoys, the lures and the nest cages are things that I did on my year in 2023 over there, and they have continued. I'm really pleased that they're still being used.
Yeah, your decoys are a work of art.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to get one for the house.
Absolutely.
And we have a funny relationship with these terns, don't we?
We do.
And they are the most fickle beasts, you know. Like, we used to have 5 species, didn't we? At one point, we had
did.
5 species of tern. It's very difficult to believe now. Before my time, in the 1970s, we had all 5 species of tern nesting there. Nowadays, we have the 2, the little terns, which can be incredibly fickle. They can all decide to go to Hodbarrow one year, or from all the Hodbarrow ones come to us for another year. So they split their time between the Wildlife Trust and the RSPB. The Arctics are much more site faithful, aren't they?
Yes, they have strong site fidelity, they do, yes.
But still, because we've put so much time and effort into these birds over the years, haven't we? With Chris mentioned the fence and the turf stripping that we've done to create all this nesting habitat. It's a difficult thing, isn't it, you know?
It is. It's definitely difficult, but definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Yes, the Arctic terns, they are quite precious about where they nest, and there's not many sites in the north where Arctics will nest, Foulney being one of them, and they will return year after year after doing such a long migration. I mean, it's anywhere between 22,000 and 50,000 miles.
Incredible,
and it's amazing.
Yeah.
It really is amazing, especially for a bird when you put it into perspective. That's only about the length of a ruler. They're about 30 centimetres long, but they can do that migration.
They must be knackered.
They must be.
Yeah.
They absolutely must be.
Yeah.
So it's really incredible that they come back and they choose to nest at Foulney year upon year. And it does just show you how important it is to keep disturbance to a minimum for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the disturbance, again, I thoroughly believe is the key. And, you know, we as a trust have been involved with Foulney since the 1960s as well as Walney, and putting a warden on there every year. First of all, we have to find the money to do it, but putting a warden on there every year, putting the caravan on there, putting the infrastructure to make sure that we can police the place, and having that person there to be able to talk to people, to be able to explain to people what it's all about. It's a hearts and minds thing, isn't it? It's
It really
about
is.
changing people's attitudes, and like, I think Chris was incredibly good in his interview in talking about how he approaches people and the way we can make this work without antagonism and without stress.
I think he's brilliant at that. He's very, very good at approaching people, speaking to them, and just educating them really about the importance of these nesting birds.
I love the way he's happy with his own company as
Oh
well,
yeah,
because
absolutely.
that's definitely something that you really need.
Yes.
My brother actually applied for the Foulney job once, but he decided not to take it because he didn't think he could.
Oh, right.
He could hack it. There was nights on his own in the caravan.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we've talked about Walney, we've talked about Foulney. Liz has also been out to talk to Steph Leow, who works for the RSPB, and she's their beach nesting birds officer for Cumbria. Like I said at the start of the podcast, we've got huge amounts of wonderful habitat and wonderful nesting habitat all up the coast here, but we don't really have that many nesting birds. And really, these birds, the oyster catchers and the ring plover, should be nesting all the way up the Cumbrian coast, up the west coast. And there was a time, again before my time, but records show that little terns nested on shingle all up the west coast. And I think a lot of this decrease in nesting is to do with people's use of the beaches in nesting time. Anyway, Liz has been out to talk to Steph from the RSPB about work she's been doing on the west coast and about a specific area of the west coast near Seascale, which appears to have be a bit of a hotspot for these species. So let's go over to Liz now.
Yeah, well, here we are on the beautiful beach just north of Seascale, and I've joined Steph Leow from the RSPB, and Steph's going to tell me a little bit about what she does here, what her role is in protecting the coastal birds.
Yeah, so I am the Cumbria Beach Nesting Bird Project Officer, which basically means that my role is to identify the hotspots for breeding ringed plover and oystercatcher from the Solway down to Ascombe Furnace.
How long is that coastline?
It's about 100 miles, I think, give or take. So the idea is to kind of identify where these hotspot areas are. So where we are standing now, Seascale Beach is one of such areas. And as well as identifying the hotspot areas, we're trying to identify what the main threats are, whether that's predation or human disturbance. and then try and work with the local communities, business owners, landowners to try and help mitigate these issues and hopefully increase the fledgling population for these birds.
Okay, so tell me what's special about this beach. It's a very wide expanse, isn't it?
Yeah, so we are currently at Seascale Beach, and the beaches from Sellafield to Drigg are a very special area for ringed plover because it's got such a high population density of breeding birds here. So last year we counted about 27 breeding pairs on this small stretch of beach, which is about 3 kilometres of coastline. So it's a very small area to have such a high breeding population. And this is not something that you see in many other places, so it's a very important place for it. At the top of the beach you have shingle, and that is where the ringed plover and oystercatchers like to nest because it's very well camouflaged for both the birds and for the eggs and chicks as well. So they will nest on the top of the beach above the high tide line to protect the eggs, and then at low tide you'll see there's a lot of sand, but it's not a touristy area at all. So on a day like today, we're talking about Friday afternoon, we've seen 20 people the whole time we're here.
It's not overcrowded, is it?
It's not overcrowded, no. It is a very quiet beach.
And perfect for ringed plovers. Can you tell me a bit about them?
Yeah, so the ringed plover is a very small bird, so it's about 10 centimetres tall when it's standing at full height. It is a small brown bird, it has a brown back and a white belly, and in the summer it has a black mask and a black bib with a short orange beak. And when it's sitting down, when it's looking after a nest, it will be sitting down. All you will see is a small brown rock, basically, when it's out on the beach. It's incredibly difficult to see them.
Are they here all year round?
No, so they're not here all year round. They do migrate, so they come here in the summer to breed. So you'll see kind of March, April, you'll see flocks of ringed plover coming through. You'll see like 40, 50 ringed plover coming through in big groups. So some of them will stay here to continue their breeding, and some of them will continue further south. And the breeding plovers will split off into pairs, and they'll kind of establish a small territory, and they will stay in that territory and lay their eggs.
So what's their nest like?
Ringed plover nest is not really much to describe. They don't build the nest as such. It's not like building a nest in a tree. That's kind of the typical way people think of a nest. What a ringed plover does is it makes something that we call a scrape, which is basically where they will move a bit of shingle with their feet and their bum, and that's where they'll lay their eggs. So they'll lay 4 eggs, and the eggs are kind of the size of a Cadbury's mini egg, and they're speckled. They look a lot like rocks, and they're incredibly hard to see because they're both so small and also very well camouflaged.
I think you told me that the chicks have to fend for themselves as soon as they come out of the egg.
Yeah, so when the ringed plover chick hatches, the parent birds look after them in the sense of they'll warn them of danger, they will show them where the food is, but the chicks have to feed themselves. The parents can't regurgitate food, can't bring food back to the chicks. So from day one, these chicks are out, and when they hatch, they're about 2 centimetres tall when they hatch, so they're very, very tiny little balls of fluff that then need to fend for themselves and go find food, work out what food is, because when you're 1 day old, you don't know what is and isn't edible. The parents are hanging around. They will alert to them that there's danger nearby. When they do that, it's a bit like a scene out of Jurassic Park, because the parents will call out to them, and the chicks will then stay very, very still. And as we know from Jurassic Park, if you move, the predator will find you and it'll eat you. If you don't move, you will be safe. Which works when you're thinking about crows or foxes. When you're talking about people and dogs, unfortunately, it's very easy for us to get really, really close to them without even knowing that they are there.
Tell me a bit about the survival rate for chicks on this beach.
So the survival rate for these chicks for fledging, so we're talking about birds that have hatched and have been around for about 27 days, basically young adults, is less than 5% for this beach.
Less than 5%?
Yes. So last year we had 27 breeding pairs on this beach. Out of those 27 breeding pairs, we had about 50 nesting attempts. And out of 50 nesting attempts, only 5 chicks actually managed to make it to fledging age, which is a very, very low number.
Oh, that's desperate, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So why is the survival rate so horrendously low?
So we kind of boiled down the survival rate problem due to two factors. One is predation and the other is human disturbance. Now, some level of predation is of course natural because predators have to eat, it's the whole circle of life thing, but a ring plover and their chicks are not top of anybody's food list because the ring plover egg is the size of a mini egg. Eating 4 of those is not going to fill you up, so it's not enough to sustain a population of predators. And any predators coming across these nests, it's not because they're hunting a ringed plover, they are just coming across a nest without a parent to look after it, or they're coming across a chick that's been separated from the parent and they go, oh, that's a easy meal, I'll grab that. But part of the reason why these chicks and eggs are not being looked after by the parents is due to the parents being distracted by constant human disturbance and actually leaving their nest open to real predators.
And dogs don't help much either, do they?
If you have a dog, especially if your dog is not right next to you, if your dog is off the lead running around, that's causing an additional problem. It could be because they're chasing adults or chicks, it could be because they might step on an egg, but in reality it's more to do with the fact that the dog's presence on the beach, especially on the shingle, causes a lot of stress for these birds.
So what's the RSPB doing about it?
Yeah, so last year we only had signage up on access points and at the car park to tell people that this is the beach nesting season and ask them to keep off the shingle as much as possible. And that's 2024. So this year what we've done is we've doubled the number of signs we have, so almost every access point onto the beach this year has some form of signage warning people that it's the beach nesting season, and again asking them to keep off the shingle as much as possible and keep their dogs off the shingle as much as possible. What we've also done is we've created set areas called kind of safe nesting zones, which are areas marked out by fence posts. There's nothing in between the fence posts, there's no rope, there's no wire in between the fence posts. It's just marking out an area to serve as a visual aid for people so that they know what we mean by the top of the shingle. It just reminds people that, by the way, these birds are nesting right now, and they then remember as they're approaching the beach, if they see the fence posts, they remember it's the nesting season, they remember to go further down the beach.
And it's no huge sacrifice, is it? Because the area that's fenced off, we're just standing by one of the fenced off areas now. Well, it's not fenced off, it's marked off, really, isn't it, rather than fenced off. But it's a tiny, tiny sliver compared with this vast beach.
Yes, exactly. So, especially at low tide, you have so much beach. In reality, for when you're walking, especially if you're doing a lot of walking, it's actually much nicer to walk on the sand than it is on the shingle because you're not trudging as much as you do on shingle. It's very easy to twist your ankle when you're walking on shingle. So right now we're seeing this, it's low tide, there's lots and lots of sand. Your dog can go off running around there, heart's content, and that is fine because it's not disturbing the beach nesting birds. We're literally talking about a very small portion of the beach. It's the top of the shingle above the high tide mark where we've put up fence posts just to ask people, could you go around it, please?
I mean, the beach is so huge. I mean, there's so much to share, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, you don't need that little sliver of shingle above the high tide line.
Yeah. Statement we want to put out is that you are sharing the beach with these birds. They are here from April to August, a short period of time, to lay some eggs, hopefully fledge some chicks, and continue the population for the next generation. I think a lot of the kind of issues these birds face is actually a lack of awareness. People don't realise that they are on the beach. And when you're talking about a 10 centimetre brown bird, nobody sees it if they don't have binoculars, so unless you know that they are there, it's very easy for you to accidentally disturb. The majority of the disturbance is not because people are deliberately doing anything, they are doing it because they don't know. You know, as David Attenborough said, that you have to show people nature, because if they don't know about it, how can they care about it? And then if they can't care about it, how can they protect it? So that's basically what we are trying to do.
So we're just heading back now, Steph, towards Seascale. So when we passed this way an hour or so ago, there was quite a lot of activity on behalf of the ring plovers, but there's not so much now, though, Steph, is there? So where have they all gone?
So now it's low tide. If the birds are not fully incubating a nest, Both the adults are kind of free to feed and build up the energy, especially before they get into the nesting season or before they start nesting themselves. And because it's low tide, probably they are out feeding along the tide line, and they're just so much further away from us now than they would have been an hour or so ago, because the tide went further up.
Yeah.
And that just pushes them further closer to us, so we would have seen them. But now they'll be quite far away, those little dots.
Yeah. And what do they eat down there? What are they foraging for?
So the diet is basically invertebrates, anything small, crustaceans, anything you might find bits on a rock pool, sand flies when they're further up the beach, all these little flies you get bouncing about that bite you or bite your ankles, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anything that they can basically fit in their beak, they will try.
There's actually a nest very close by, isn't there?
Yeah. So there's.
Tell us what you're looking at.
So with the naked eye, I can just about see it, but that's because I know where it is. So this bird is actually nesting very, very close to one of our fence posts. It's very close to the high tide mark, so the likelihood of this nest surviving the next big high tide is actually quite low. Very, very easily going to get washed out because it's just too close to the high tide mark. But what you're seeing, if you just look at the naked eye and you're just looking around, you will not see this bird at all. it's just brown.
And it's just because it's so still as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not moving at all. Not even twitching its head a little bit. I can't see it moving. I can see it, but only because I know it's there. With the binoculars, you'll be able to see it very clearly because actually it's quite close to us. And all you'll see is this little bird, this brown bird, sitting down on its nest. You can just about make out the black eye mask and bib from this angle.
Yes.
But not very much. It is just a small brown bird. That's probably quite good audio. So this is one of our beach nesting bird signs that we've put out. Again, another temporary measure that's put out in the first week of April and then taken down at the end of August, at the end of the nesting season. The message put across is to keep the birds safe by giving them space. It tells you what birds we're looking at, rain plover and the oyster catcher, and the nesting dates between mid-April and mid-August. So the drawing is of a ring plover, which was done by one of the primary school kids that entered the art competition last year.
It's a brilliant picture.
That's actually based off a photograph I took last year on the beach of a bird on sea scale.
That's wonderful, and so good to know it's a local bird.
Yeah, local bird drawn by a local girl.
Really good. Well, if that doesn't convince local people to support your initiatives, I don't know what would.
A brilliant initiative from the RSPB, and it's brilliant to find that there are these areas of the West Coast. The RSPB are going to be one of our partners in this forthcoming event, which is called Operation Seabird. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going to happen at Operation Seabird?
Yeah, certainly can. So Operation Seabird was actually created as a UK-wide initiative with the intention to reduce recreational disturbance and to teach people really about the coastal wildlife that we have, and to also show people the effect that their recreational activities can have on coastal species, especially during the breeding season. So what we're going to be doing is having it here at South Walney, and it's going to be on the 28th of May from 10 till 4. And we've got several partners coming together to bring across that message. So we're going to be partnered with RSPB, Natural England, Lakes Aquarium, and also the National Trust.
This is a family day. It's not all about you mustn't.
No, it's not. Absolutely not. So the intention behind it is to educate and teach people really, and show them what kind of things they might be missing when they go out to the beach. Some of the amazing birds, even the seals and the porpoises and things that you can see on the West Coast, just to teach them about that and to also have a lot of fun. So we're going to have a lot of activities. There's going to be craft stalls, guided walks and all sorts going on that day.
And it's about this idea that if once people understand about the wildlife of their surroundings, then they will be much more inclined to do the right thing.
Absolutely, it is. And it is just about getting people to understand the importance of the species that we have, potentially their numbers, the fact that they are in decline, a lot of the beach nesting birds that we have, and to really sort of inspire a passion in people for the wildlife that we have here, and show them why it's so important to protect them, but also how we're not saying you can absolutely not be on a beach during the breeding season. It's more to say that you can share that space and to just be mindful really when out on the coast at any time of year, really. It's not just breeding season. I know that we've talked a lot about breeding season, but it's across the year. And just how to be mindful and respectful and share space. It's not that you can't be on the beach.
Unless you're at South Walney.
Unless you're at South Walney.
So, such a good point that you made about the times of the year, because South Walney and Foulney, they're so important for birds all year round, not just in the breeding season. There's all the birds that come to the bay on migration to feed up. They all need somewhere, once the water comes in at high tide, somewhere undisturbed where they can roost. Same throughout the winter. So in the autumn, in the spring, and throughout the winter, as well as the breeding season, which we're in at the moment, they're always vulnerable to disturbance. And that's why you need places like Foulney and you need places like South Walney, where the disturbance is so much less.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. A lot of species that come through on winter migration, for example, we get huge amounts of wildfowl like widgeon and Brent geese that have travelled a really, really long way. And a big thing for migratory species is it's about expending energy. So once they've done these huge migrations, what they really need is time to just roost undisturbed and regain their energy. It's very, very important all year round, really, to allow these birds their time to rest, feed and raise young.
And just to finish, everybody thinks I'm down on dogs, but dogs are a specific problem, because dogs off the lead go all over the place, and like Bekka said before, the birds think of them as a predator, and that more so than people, and that's a really big stressful thing for them. So dogs on leads on beaches is a really, really good idea, unless you're right out on the sand below the areas when the tide is out. If the birds are in because the tide's in, or it's breeding time and they're breeding on the top of the shore, they're the areas to avoid.
The bird will see dog as predator no matter what. It's just the way that they're coded, it's the way that they've evolved. Even if that dog is walking quite well, not approaching the nest, it is still seen as a threat. So even if you have a very well-behaved dog, they can still potentially be a problem.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much, Bekka.
Thank you.
I think we'll finish it there. If you do get a chance, get down to South Walney on the 28th, on the Wednesday. It's going to be a great day. A great day for seeing wildlife. It's a beautiful day here today, and we've seen loads of wildlife just sat here recording the podcast.
We have.
Yeah, and like I always say, if anybody's got any good ideas for future podcasts, then you can always drop us a line at mail@cumbriawildlifetrust.org.uk. Big thanks to you, Bekka, for showing us around at South Walney today.
And thank you to you too.
Great thanks to Liz as well for going out and being our roving reporter. And hopefully see you all next month.